Welcome to Flowers and Tea, where the ladies lead the conversation on pot, politics, and policy. I'm your host, Dr. Beast, and you already know the table is set, and I have my co-host with me here at the Other Side Dispensary. And of course, we are sitting with another incredible female entrepreneur. Her name is Ariel Mizrahi, and she is from Bud to Bloom. Please give it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. The opportunity to be able to speak with you guys is really, honestly, awesome. I've got my attorney. I've got people that I've, been known since the beginning when I first got involved, and it just feels really amazing to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking a seat at the table. And I actually want to talk about that because, I know that you operate in Netcong. That's how you pronounce it, right?
That is
Netcong,
exactly it.
Right. Lived in Jersey so long, and all the Wichita, we got so many great But I know that, you started your journey in many different places trying to figure out where you're going to land, finding a location. I know you tried here in Jersey City, and God bless you for...
God bless you, girlfriend.
for not going through all the angst. Oh, I don't know about that. But I just want to talk about before you actually got to your store. When did you get into this? When is your journey? I know you know Shirali. I know you've dealt with, a program that she had. Please tell us.
So I started the process back in September of 2021. It was right after the state had awarded, that I had found out that the state was going to be allowing for consumption. I had an idea years and years before that. I mean, the idea for Bud to Bloom definitely fostered way before that. When I was living out in Spain, I got the opportunity to be able to experience cannabis culture from the European standpoint. How social connection is tied to the experience of consuming cannabis. And I just got really inspired. I remember sitting one day in a cafe in Amsterdam, just talking to people of all different walks of life, and just feeling so inspired and realizing that we already had something in common, and it was a beautiful thing for me to experience that. And I just kept wondering what would it be like if that would happen at home.
Yeah.
And, push came to shove in, September. I had found out the state had opted in for cannabis, and that's where the journey started.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the social consumption aspect is so important. And, we've been here in Jersey City going through the journey for a while because the state has approved it since last year, I believe, but we haven't gotten it together in this city. And it's really, really important because, especially in major cities where it's hard to find a place to consume. A lot of people don't own their residence, they're renters, some people are in subsidized housing. They need safe spaces to consume. Tell me about what, being in Amsterdam and seeing the coffee shops and that experience and with the context that I just brought in, how, what do you think about that?
I mean, that's what attracted me to Jersey City to begin with, I didn't come to Jersey City originally because I was looking for just a retail location. I came here because it was one of the only 7 cities in the entire state that was allowing for cannabis consumption. I started off really, diving into the Jersey City landscape political, game for a year. I sat in on all the different cannabis control board meetings, listening into what, they were doing, what applicants were the ones that were getting acceptance letters, and I started to slowly realize for us, it just wasn't really lining up. The city had kind of started to put a tap. It wasn't really working out at the time, with the person that I was going to sign a lease with. And that's when I just started to kind of navigate towards. But I mean, the beauty was the consumption piece. It felt like the easiest path to go to Jersey City because they already had it, and they already had the regulations in place, and that's what a lot of people were doing, was going to the places where regulations were already.
Right. That too was my logic.
Yeah.
At the time, it was the only option you had.
It's funny it wasn't because I actually looked at this location. I did.
It was not zoned. I sat on it and waited for it to be zoned.
I literally looked at this location. 70% of municipalities opted out. There was very limited options where you could go in 2021.
Yep. Well,
I just wanted to take it back even to the initial starting point, how you mentioned when you got into this space. Yeah. Just to help other entrepreneurs who start the process, what were some of the things that you did to I guess, educate yourself? Like, you know, I know you attended different events and things.
Yeah,
like,
so I started off.
What was helpful? Sorry.
Yeah.
I started off like, you know, going to, first of all, I knew I needed to meet people in the industry, right? I went to different conventions at the beginning. I went to really anything I could find and anything anyone told me about. You know, so I worked my 9-to-5 job during the day, and after that, whatever was available at night, I would go to weekends. You know, I did not have a social life other than cannabis, but honestly, I loved it because I got to meet the people and socialize with them, and also still kind of learn and build, you know, like my understanding of the industry. Another thing I did was I also, you know, found mentors within the space. So, you know, like I had the privilege of knowing a couple people who had known other cannabis operators. You know, actually one of like somebody I grew up with used to be the former president of the Cure Leaf in New York. So I went to her, I talked to her. My dad had a friend like who was in college that he had known from actually grade school. I apologize. She was involved in the Chicago market, so I actually even flew out and met with her. You know, started to just try to like build like my build relationships within the space. And you know, I had this idea, but how do you take that idea and bring it to concept? And also, I was watching News Channel 12 one day, and Chirali was doing a Blaze Responsibly event, and you know, I spent one of the days doing that with her, and that, you know, kind of pointed me in the right directions of who to talk to for, you know, what vendors and whatnot. Honestly, I feel like the trueness to it all is I came up with an idea. I believed in the fact that I could do that idea. And I think that spoke in the way that when I was communicating with people, they could feel it themselves. And so because of that, people wanted to see me do good. And so some people pointed me in directions, you know, and here we are today.
That's amazing.
So I'm gonna jump in here because Ariel is my client, as she mentioned, and we started this journey together in late 2021. And I saw all the work that she put in, looking for a location. She did a lot of work in Jersey City. She was actively looking in Hoboken, Rockaway, a lot of towns. She definitely put in the work. But ultimately, you wound up in Netcong.
I did.
And a lot of people, well, you didn't know this until I told you today, but I teach the cohort on municipal support for the New Jersey Cannabis Training Academy. And in that cohort, after I go through all the great things that you can do to try to get a resolution of support in a town that's already opted in, I get to the nitty gritty and I say, well, what else can you do, right? And when all else fails, and I bring up an example of a client of mine who lobbied a town successfully and was able to get them to opt in and create a resolution to allow them to open a dispensary, and that client is you. So why don't you tell everybody in our audience how that came about?
So I said before, you know, it's like that building momentum thing. So it actually really started in Roxbury, which is my hometown. And for 6 months I sat going to council meetings, you know, learning about the council members, learning about like what the town was looking to do, you know, and slowly approaching them regarding, you know, hearing me out on this plan. Now, at the time, Roxbury was opted out. They still are opted out. But, you know, I spent 6 months, and the momentum in my town started to build because I was going to do this. So I was talking about it on Facebook. I was talking about it with anyone and everyone in town that would listen. Literally. I'm with you. Flyers, sharing stuff with, like flyers with people, trying to get people to sign, like, a petition. One meeting, I actually brought about 60 people to the council meeting. Wow. And that's where the town was like, okay, you know what, maybe we'll listen to you.
This is grassroots community organizing. This is what it takes, right? That level of relationships move the needle.
100%. And you know what, they ended up, like, you know, starting to seem like they were kind of moving in the right direction to wanting to hear our proposal. And then, like, one day, you know, I found out that they had a meeting with the local community or whatever, and I wasn't able to be there. I was away at that time. And I found out from them, like, after I'd sent them, you know, spent the time building the presentation for, you know, to present my plan on this location, because they were like, why Landing? I found a location. It was a bank, former bank. It was kind of perfect. It was like literally 3 blocks away from my house. It couldn't have been more perfect for me in a commute. It had a lot of opportunity, and I had gotten the landlord on board. But the town didn't want to hear me, and I said, you know what, okay. And one day I was literally I took a rest break day, and everything happens for a reason. I went to my friend's house, and she happens to live in the building where our location is now, and I saw that there was an empty real estate location, and this location was sitting right on Route 46, street level. I was like, oh, that's kind of beautiful. So I contacted the owner, and I said, listen, I knew how everything kind of worked at that point. You know, all landlords kind of want at least some form of equity. So I kind of, you know, sat down with him, presented him like the plan or whatever, and said, like, listen, if you're interested, you know, I'll give you equity. The only ask is that you have to help me, you know, get, you know, the town on board. And it turned out that my business partner actually wanted way more than just landlord equity. He wanted to be involved. So his cousin had been involved in in a retail facility out in Massachusetts, and you know, they were looking to bring in cultivation into New Jersey, and I guess something fell through. And that's where, you know, he's like, actually, I've been wanting to get into cannabis. I'm like, all right, listen, I come with a conditional. I'll teach you everything I know about cannabis and wellness based around that. And, you know, and from then on out, we sat down. Netcong, because we paved the road in Roxbury, like why I'm saying this is because it set the momentum for Netcong to want to hear us out. So while Roxbury said no, Netcong was like, you know what? We're a small town. Like, they're a 1 square mile town. They were like, you know what? We're interested. So even if they're not, we'll listen to you. And so that's kind of where we started the conversation. And, you know, the first piece was first presenting to them, like, why cannabis sales. You know, understand. So we did a lot of deep diving research into our community, into, you know, what it was that they were into, like what it was that they stood for, you know, trying to figure out the local businesses, trying to figure out like the landscape of the customers, trying to, you know, hear out like what the town cares mostly about.
Ariel, I just wanted to take a second to underscore that, because I don't think folks understand how important that is. That is a huge part of strategy, to understand the town's values and how 100%. Do you fit into the values of that town. The demographics, is this a family town? Is it, you know, young professionals? Is it, you have to be looking at that so intricately. So I love hearing about folks who are doing that research and really being intentional around it. So I have a quick question. Now, yes, they were interested. Yes, you can kind of speak to them about what the different benefits are. There are multiple different benefits, right, to having cannabis dispensaries in your town. What do you feel like was the main piece? Is it employment? Is it tax revenue? What were they most interested in that you presented?
I think that, like, for Netcong, it was the tax revenue. You know, when I was sitting in Roxbury, I realized, you know, for 6 months sitting in these meetings, I found out what the state was requiring small towns to do in regards to the water, like runoff and everything like that. Like the requirements like that had changed for the state, where, you know, street cleaning requirements had like shifted. And so it required a lot more funding to be able to essentially keep up with the uptake of the town based on the like state's requirements. And so I realized that was kind of like an opening gate, you know, and I realized that they're a 1 square mile town with not that many residents. And so for them, like, they were having trouble being able to afford to keep up with everything. And so for us, like, we kind of presented a plan that was very much focused on like where we would be able to provide support. And, you know, we also got involved with our community, to be honest. Like, a big piece was too, is at that time, as soon as I realized that Netcong would have been on board, I started getting involved with the local food pantry. That's right. And, you know, I started showing like that I can be a valuable member to this community, you know, and I feel like that definitely helped a lot in, you know, people realizing that we weren't just in it for the profit, we were in it because we cared, and that we were going to be involved, you know, moving forward in the community. It wasn't like we were doing it to get them to see.
No,
exactly. You know,
yes, I
like
do. That
was always part of what we wanted to do, was be immersed within the community that allowed us to be part of their community.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think something else that was important was, even though you were well versed in your business model and your plan, you could have and you'd been doing a lot of outreach already, you could have very easily showed up there and answered questions, but you showed up with a team, right? You had your partners. I was there. You had your application writer. You had a presentation. You were organized, and that really goes a long way in terms of showing the municipality that not only do you know what you're talking about, but you're prepared to do what it takes, right? Get organized, have your team available and ready to answer questions, which was very important. And I think that showed a lot of confidence in that you were mobilized and ready to go.
Now, I have to suspect too, Rose, you being involved with the municipal background that you have, and Ariel, you mentioned deep dive, that you ladies were going into the master plan. So every municipality has a master plan that outlines goals, strengths, and like weaknesses, and so you're able to really identify what this township needs are. And master plans have to be updated at least every 10 years by law. So it's typically you try to find like the most recent one, and then that helps give you some ammo when you're walking in. And you're like, you know what, actually I went through your like 200-page master plan. I saw you need better sidewalks on such and such street. My property happens to be right here, and we're gonna invest in, so I wonder, did you guys look into, things like that when you were researching the town?
So we did when we were looking into Roxbury, right? And Charlie, I actually think we had a conversation. I had reached out to you, and had relayed some of the things that you had told us, about where to find the master plan and everything along those lines. But it ended up like with Netcong, I didn't have to go that far because they had already heard what we were doing. I had built enough momentum in Roxbury that my entire area was just talking now. You know what I mean? And so that was the beauty. I think like if you speak loudly, but in a way, I approached my community not in like a pressing type of way, just more in like a listen, like let me explain it to you. Like if you are willing to hear me out, I'll point you in the directions of where you can see it being successful.
I love that. I feel like right now in Jersey City, I'm in the thick of like separating myself from that experience, that political involvement. Really, since my birthday, I feel like I always say this thing, I like to go where I'm celebrated, not tolerated.
Yep.
And I feel like in this energy lately in Jersey City, especially since the new administration, has been a lot of like tolerance of people. How do you balance like advocating for the business, what your business interests are, but without overreaching in a way that could create political resistance?
That's a really good question.
Because I'm just everyone's favorite, so I need some tips.
I would say honestly, like pulling people one-on-ones is going to be a huge way. Getting like I sat down with like a lot of different council members and one-on-ones, like just got to know them as people first. Like what did they care about? Like what were their visions for the community? And I was able to just kind of build relationships with people without, did I want my dispensary to be in Netcong or Roxbury? Yes, I did.
Right.
But like I wasn't going there at that point to ask them of that. I was just going there to start the conversation and just make relationships with people within the town. To understand if like it would even be possible if it was a conversation that they wanted to have. I would say, definitely people have a perception on what cannabis, users are and look like. I think like when I went to the meetings, I presented myself, very polished.
Right.
I did my hair. I, wore, nice clothing, and I waited my turn to speak, on any public forum that I was able to kind of get onto for any of the like council meetings. I spoke at every single time I had an opportunity. And it's really funny because even after we had actually gotten our support from Netcong, there was an older gentleman. He was awesome. He was sitting in on one of the council meetings with Roxbury at the beginning, and he actually went back after I left there and moved to Netcong and went back to them and was like, why didn't you let her? No. And I love that. So I think it's important just to find people that are, that you can build with and that you feel can hear you out, you know?
Yeah.
And just trying to first just identify those individuals by just getting to know them as people first.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Hence my concept of celebrated and not tolerated. And you know, it is a little bit disheartening when you come from a place and you want to bring your vision and your service there to your community. But I think it's really important to also highlight the fact that like you can go somewhere else. And a lot of times people feel like I can't sort of infiltrate someone else's community or go into another space. But when they see that you're there to be a contributing business owner to their community, they see that you're a good actor, they see how you're presenting yourself, how you've immersed yourself in education. That's how you build that trust.
100%. They just want to see that you care, truly, honestly. Like after that, like, I mean, I did it because I loved doing it. I always worked at like food pantries when I was younger. So when I found out that that one of the council members was involved with that, I started volunteering. I'm like, can I help you? Like, you know, like I appreciate that you're giving me the respect to at least hear out why I think cannabis sales would be good for your town. Mm-hmm. You know, if you choose me or you don't choose me, that's okay. I'm still just here to try to, you know, my goal has always been to reduce the stigma on cannabis, you know, and so like I didn't come at it with like just my own needs of trying to open this store, because at the same time I was also I was planning other options. Like, you know, I had like 8 plans, I think, at one time. Like Rose knows, like I'm like, Rose, what about this location? What about that one? You know, I was until like I had gotten the yes, I was still gonna be finding every other option, you know, just in case, because I didn't want my time to be wasted. You know, I had learned that I spent a year in Jersey City trying to pave the landscape here, and I was like, you know.
Can I ask you something? How did you know? What was the moment that you know, like, no one to hold them, no one to fold them? Like, when did you say, okay, this is a year? I'm good. Like, you know, what was the turning point?
You know, the turning point, I would say, like about a year. You know, with Jersey City, I had seen that they were kind of like, at the beginning at least, they were making approvals very quickly, and I knew like how big this area was, because the reason why I chose Jersey City wasn't also just because of, you know, the fact that they had allowed for consumption. It was also my business, my family's HVAC company that I was working full-time for running was also located we used to be in Hoboken. So a lot of our client base, we built a ton of the businesses, you know, a lot of the new construction, like high-rise residentials here. So I had already known some people that were like realtors or own locations, you know. But I guess for me, it was like, it's just like when there was just feelings, I think, a little bit more of an intuition. Like people didn't want to hear you out so much, like, or like you brought up, like you showed up and they were just kind of like, they'd look the other way real quick. Like you could just tell, I read their body language, I guess.
No, thank you, because this is what I'm trying to get people to. Like, it's art and science, right?
Jersey City, she's talking about you.
Yeah. It's art and science, right? In terms of like knowing how to read a room, I find is an art that is sometimes very much lost on folks. So I appreciate that nuance of, it's been a year and I still don't feel like I'm making any more relationship with you. Still roll your eyes when I come into the room. Probably time to fold them. Thank you. I just wanted you to illustrate that.
I would say by 6 months, if you can't have like a hard meeting with somebody that's going to be able to elevate it to the next level, to actually get you on the onto the agenda to speak and like, you know, with the town, at that point I would probably fold myself.
Thank you.
That's another important lesson, which is the fact that you don't have to have established relationships or connections in a town. You can make them. And that's the most important thing, because I think when I tell people about you and I mention how you successfully lobbied a town, you had no connections there. You literally hit the ground running and made those connections. And a lot of people just automatically assume that, she had to have known someone. And that's not the case, right? So what would you advise someone who's looking to make those connections? What is the best way? I'm a big proponent for going to meetings. I tell people all the time, believe it or not, when I'm sitting at that dais, and I know council people do this too, they look at the audience. You see the same people there all the time. You see that they're vested and that they really want it. It's a strong message. People underestimate the power of just showing up.
It's true. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, for the first 2 to 3 months that I went to those council meetings, I did not say why I was there. Eventually the council was like, well, can we ask you why you keep showing up? Like, you know, like, what are you here for? You know, and that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for them to notice me and realize that, like, I was here. But I guess that's how I approached it, like, calmly, you know. I let them come to me and wonder what I was doing there, you know. and I showed up. I went to also community events, like, you know, we had a tree lighting ceremony and like like around Christmas time. I tried to immerse myself in any kind of way I possibly could to understand the dynamic of the community. And I knew that, you know, going to community events, council members will be there, and you can, you know, honestly just get to know them as people, period, without them even knowing. And I think that I did sway a couple council members. A couple of council members in Roxbury did want to hear me out, but it wasn't enough, unfortunately, on my timeline. They were open to it in another year. You know, another thing to look out too is political landscape, like when are elections, because that is a big piece of that too. Like a town may not, you know, if you're on a certain like timeline for yourself, especially when you've got money tied up in like a lease of some sort, you know, you've got people you're paying retainers to like help you. You know, for us, it was like that piece was really important to like think about.
What's really important that when you're lobbying for yourself, I love that you said you were looking into the different council members and researching, like you mentioned somebody was part of a food pantry, so then you went and now you're volunteering, even though you did that before, but it's like getting to know them as people and understanding what what do they like, because now you actually have commonality. It's a lot easier to have that conversation. I mean, this is what people pay big bucks to do, right? The lobbyists behind the scenes, they know who's who politically, and so the fact that you did that, that speaks volumes. And I just wanted to ask you, you know, when you mentioned Roxbury and then Jersey City, like you had Family Ties, Consumption Lounge, Roxbury, you lived close by. When you are evaluating a municipality for a potential location for retail, what would you say are like the key determining factors? Like, is it demographics? Is it disposable income? Is it political climate, zoning for the retail sites? Like, what are some of those key factors that you would say?
Before you answer, I just want to add on to that, because that's a great question, and I think it's really important for people to understand, because I guess let me not put her store on blast, because I don't know if she wants people to know, but I have a friend that owns a dispensary in a town that only has less than 10,000 residents. And by any, especially big companies, metrics, they would say that's not where we want to be, because that's not even enough to service the dispensary to make whatever their revenue. But when you look at the surrounding areas and how much miles there's not another dispensary, that's what starts to make it look a little bit more attractive. And you said that it's a 1 mile square town, or a 1 mile town, and that it didn't have a large population. And when we think about that, Hoboken, which you mentioned too, is also 1 mile square. But Rose, what's the population of Hoboken?
Oh my God. So there's the one on the census, which is probably like 60 or 70,000, and then the legit, because a lot of people claim they still live with their parents when they live in Hoboken. It's probably 90,000. Right.
So that's a lot, right? Jersey City is a huge city. It's about 300, and Hoboken about 100 in a mile. So, sorry, I didn't mean to, but I just want, for context for the audience to understand, like, because like that's a business decision if you don't have enough customers in the city. That's right. But obviously you still do.
100%. I mean, after I kind of like moved more west, I definitely was looking for, like, I looked at the opportunity in every different location. You know, I had a business plan in place, and I built my business around my community, right? But I also think that, like, it just depends on whether you're set on your full vision or whether you're willing to navigate that to the community. Because if you're set, then I guess you have to look at all those parameters. But if you can find something like that's like affordable, you know, in a neighborhood, it might allow you a little bit more capabilities to invest some of your other budget into marketing that can kind of build a little bit more awareness. That I looked at, I mean, number one for dispensary, how easy is it to get to? That's going to be really, really important. You know, like what road is it on? You know, especially being out in the suburbs, you know, everyone drives cars. So, you know, we had to find a place that was easily accessible, had decent parking, because again, everyone's driving. We were looking at a place that was like large enough for us and what we were looking to do. I mean, I was fortunate enough that I had known my community because I grew up there my whole life. So I kind of had an idea. Like, I mean, I was looking for, we're a craft cannabis dispensary. we focus on working more with like local mom and pop cultivators than the multi-state operators. That's like really big in our mission values, and that's something I always wanted to do, and we still have. We very much have stung true to that, but I also understood that I had to target a certain market for those kinds of products. You know, if I'm coming to like the certain areas of a more urbanized like city, you know, you're definitely going to be looking at more affordable price points where you may not have that at this point, and where we are in the cultivators still trying to make their money back. You know, everybody is, you know, trying to essentially, once that happens and everybody is able to break even, I think prices will start reducing a little bit more. But we're supporting, you know, the little guys that are trying to make their dreams come true too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you feel like you have to you're experiencing the price compression the way that maybe we do in a big city? Like, you are the only one. I got 48 around me.
I actually just had a competitor open recently. So my first one came, and they have definitely come at our throat a little bit, but it's okay, you know. I figured out ways to be able, for me, it's about building business relationships with our customers, with our community, with our vendors, with literally everybody. And I think one important piece is you have to, I think as a company, you have to start from the base, the structure, we talked about that, but I also think it's creating the missions, the values, you know, of what you want your brand to stand for. And for us, like, we had 4 core values, and everything that we do is focused around that. Like, there's points where, you know, I've had to make a hard call, like, even personally, like, I built relationships with people, but it's like, it's not lining up to the values of the business, you know. And
Ariel, I just want to underscore what you said here, because moving in alignment and not being swayed by gimmicks or, you know, trends that are happening in the market or things of that nature, cannot underscore how important that is, because that is something that you will see more experienced companies do, right? Like, they're not going to get swayed, oh, that person's having a sale, now we have to slash everything. You have to stick to your plan. You already had a plan, and you can't always be swayed by what people are doing next to you. So I love that you talk about that.
I think that that's like one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of operators right now are making. And I actually, you know, I've had like friends in the industry, and I've had the privilege of being able to run a successful business before I opened up cannabis, right? And I understand that a lot of people in cannabis, they have a passion, they love cannabis, and they want to share that, but they don't have the business background.
Ariel, say a word, and it's going to lead me to a follow-up question. After that, I'm going to let you continue, however. Go ahead.
And you know what? My job is to make sure that the people around me are also doing well. So I have sat down with operators that are my friends in the industry. I'm like, why are you discounting? Not everything always has to be discounted. You have to sell the value of the brand. Just because that's somebody else's business model, that's not our business model. You know, like, we need to... my business model is I want to sell quality products that are affordable, yes, but I want to make my employees' lives like good. You know, I want to be able to provide them certain benefits. Like, that costs money, you know, and there's only so much I can do. So we negotiate deals with vendors that allow us the ability to play around a little bit, but also depends on like who your vendor is, you know, it depends on like how loyal you are to them. You know, are they like, if you're loyal to them and, you know, you really like work to push their brands, like, you start upping the amount that you start buying, that allows you a little bit more flexibility and being able to, you know, negotiate some promotional products that can attract it. But if you're going to take it off of the keystone price, I don't know. I personally find that that's where a lot of operators are failing, is that they're comparing themselves to other people instead of just, again, coming up with their values, their mission, and their bottom line to be able to stay open, you know?
Yeah. I think we're seeing that across the board in so many different efforts. I can't tell you how many people are like, I'm starting a podcast, and then they come and they see all this stuff and they're like, oh shit, it's not easy.
Just kidding. I'm not starting a podcast anymore.
No, but I think it's really important to understand, like, to know your vision and to stay in your lane and not to be swayed by what's happening. Danielle really hit it spot on, and I feel like the fact that you've been able to sort of like stand on business, you know, but also like you have to know your demographic So going back to Shirley's question, like about understanding, can I even get this price point out of this community?
Yeah.
That's really important to know, because some people got big craft dreams and go into the hood, and it's just not going down, right?
Yeah.
It's just not even affordable. It's not even about what people want.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? It's about affordability.
And that's the thing, it's knowing your market too.
Yes.
You know, a lot of like my brands and like the price points were selected, we try to create, you know, different tiered levels. So we've got, you know, within $5 increments, we brought in brands that kind of represented that tier. But we also didn't take in too many brands. Like we allowed our brand, we stood by our day ones, and we have not let go of anybody pretty much that we've started with.
Oh, wow.
But because we learned how to sell the value of those brands, you know, and then in relationship with that, when my competitors opened, you know, there's a lot of loyalty to my vendors. I didn't have to ask them even to sign exclusivity agreements, because they realized we've created such a good like relationship with them, that we worked with them, they worked with us, you know. I think that that's really important, an important piece at least, is those, you know, vendor relationships, but it's understanding your market too. It's both. It's the research on all fronts.
That's the most important part. And like you mentioned, you just had another competitor open up, and it's like, had you not been so clear on your demographics and understanding your values, it'd be a struggle, right? Because you don't know what like people are spending money on or what's affordable to them. And going back to like, I think Rose, you brought up, was it as a joke, but like census data, I have clients look at what does the census in your town say for retail spending per capita. Those are like benchmark numbers you can get free access to, right? To understand, okay,
100%.
this is how much the average family is spending in this town on retail spending. If another like operator comes in, like how does that shift like our pricing structure? And I think what I've been seeing a lot of is retailers like cutting prices, discounting, but then there's no loyalty to a degree to the vendor side. Like maybe consumers are okay with it to a degree because they want something that's cheap and affordable, but your vendor's like, why is my product at this price now? Like I might not want to continue doing business long term because like you're eating away at some of that goodwill that you built up.
Sometimes I wonder though, do you really need to cut your prices to compete with them anymore? If you create a great experience for your customers and you care and you educate them and you know you take the time to like really hear them out, like we have a consultation based service. We pride ourselves in that. Like for us, this forefront is education. I want to empower my community to understand cannabis so they can select the right products for themselves. Right. I don't want to like just have bud tenders that are like, yeah, this is good. No, I want people that can educate the community and be like, this is what this means on a lab test. You know, this is how that applies potentially to like how that's gonna, your experience with this. This is how much you should have potentially based on your body weight, you know, on average for you to enjoy this experience. Because I think there's people that were already consumers, and then there's people that are really curious. It's a whole new another market. Right. You know, we try to attract both. We try to attract like the people that are experienced users. That's why we have certain, you know, high percentage things on our menus, but we also really, even if I'm not making the full money on it, we still keep certain lines to attract certain people because maybe they might need a CBD one-to-one. For me, the accessibility of products was really important. So even if I don't make too much on that product, I still want to have that because I think that that's important to attract customers and people that are cannabis curious. You know, having those lower testing, we sell through it. We really do. And sometimes at the end, it might mean maybe doing a promotion on them, you know, but we do like add it with a cannabis purchase. Like we had CBD flower. Most people don't want to take that into their store. We were able to sell it by just pairing it with a regular cannabis product and explaining to people, hey, listen, you could, you know, if you buy this, you could, it'll be $22 today. You know, it's normally $40, but if you buy, like, it'll help reduce the like high maybe. Not everybody's looking to get slammed, I guess. Forgot where I was going along with this, but I guess like where I'm coming from is understanding your market, understanding the people, and I think if you create a good experience for people, I think you can create your the demand in a way, is where I was trying to go with that.
Right. Yes.
You know,
I'm gonna add a contrarian thought to that because I definitely think that is by market, and going back to the census, I think that's why it's really important as people build out these businesses and say they're in cannabis, they're trying to figure out, I got 8 different business plans of different places, but also understanding the education on the demographics, on the census. some people in some places, they just don't have folks that have high education, right? Well, I have a customer that just left out of here before we started this podcast, and she was just like, Joey's in there showing me the back with all the numbers. She's a brilliant woman, by the way. And she's just like, for the 8th time, I don't know if I'm going to remember. Right? Like, look, higher education. Like, I've created an experience that is our model, but not every community is really interested in you forcing that. And it does, because for me, my experience is it does become something that you're kind of force feeding, and eventually they do receive it. But I just feel like every place that you go, if people are more receptive to learning, and they're just, it's just an environment that education is important. There's a higher, amount of money people make per household. I think it just leans into the fact that they probably care more about what they put in their body.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the fact that you're able to make a customer-centered experience successful
that's what I'm saying.
In the retail space that is really built on transactional volume, and 6 seconds in and out, you know what I mean? They count, how many seconds were you able to get, because it's volume based for larger companies to make. But you're saying you have a consultative process, you're spending, your bud tenders are spending time with your customers, so it's a really I'm not going to call it a really niche way, but it's a different way of operating, and to actually be profitable that. I'm wow.
Yeah, it's
I will say, I'm going to say one thing that I think really set us. I built my store as we opened. I didn't invest in any swag. Why? Because no one knows me yet. Why am I going to invest in So I looked yesterday actually at lighters. It's $1,500 to get 1,000 lighters. That adds up with t-shirts. We literally had t-shirts and hats, and that was it. And that was what my staff bought, and we, that's what they wear, And I think that, understanding how much your operations can be and what you can afford to do, and slowly building on your brands. We just started, white labeling certain things. We're just starting to investigate now, building our own, in-house brands to sell. Yes. But I think not stepping before you've built your market, and also allowing your market to come to you and tell you what they like and what's working for you. I think that a big piece of it is, for us, the way that we thought about it was we came on point. Buds of Bloom knew what we stood for. We stood for reducing the stigma by merging the familiar flowers with the unfamiliar cannabis. And so for us, being able to educate in a different way, we actually use terpene jars to educate people but it's herbs, flowers. I literally sourced all these things, and we just made it different, I think, and relatable to people. A lot of people are still also trying to navigate what cannabis is and how to utilize it. So we tried to put it into a way that was that people already knew. Most people have known flowers their whole lives. Their grandmothers, their mothers, themselves, they grow, and they could understand what the benefits of lavender were. Well, linalool exists in cannabis, and so we tried to kind of bring that, and then we got people talking about it. At the beginning, we did a customer referral program, where if you talk about our business to somebody else, give you a discount after you bring in 3 different new people. And so we tried to do these things that was just really getting people talking. We did a New Year's party. We invested right at the beginning. It was a blooming into the New Year party. We did a New Year's party where we invited the entire community, the customers that came and supported us at the first 2-3 weeks. I think that was really huge. When people passed by, they saw the tents, they were oh, what is that? So it kind of built intrigue as to what was happening there. How did they get in? We built almost this this demand for Bud to Bloom. Yes. I think that immersing yourself in the community at the beginning too is huge. Creating those events. I truly believe that people remember experiences more than they remember anything else. So
Maya Angelou said, right? People will not remember what you said or what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's that.
Yeah.
And I would say, the way to set yourself apart in Jersey City is going to be the community. Get out there, do events. Even if that means doing something that's I don't know, sticking a sticker somewhere on a tree, and telling your Instagram market and all of your customers, go find it. If you find it and you take a picture with it, here's you'll get something from it, and then you can make deals with your vendors to try to kind of navigate that. I think that's a big way. Mailers have been really successful for us too. We also have a Tuesday promotion that it rings true to our mission. So we were founded on 2222. It represents finding oneself from a holistic spiritual, wellness perspective. And so on Tuesdays between 2 and 222, we offer 20% off the entire store. And so for me, that was okay, it's fun, it's quick, it gets people that are, maybe a little bit more cost conscious in the door. It gets a brand that is a little bit more upscale, more affordable for people. I think pieces like that, then they start talking, then the friends start, we tried to build more of a home goods model, to be honest. Once you get it, we have what we have, and then when it's gone, we're out, Yeah. So we cycle, we have a really small inventory. We constantly cycle products through, which also allows us the ability to not have things expire, because I think that is a place, if you haven't built your demand yet and you haven't, gotten enough people in here, we tried to work backwards, the opposite way. We built a small vault. It means that we can only store so much. It means that we can only bring in so many brands. It means that we have to flip through things quicker. And so it allows us a lot less, risk on the expiring products, especially. We have procedures in place, not to allow products within a certain amount of expiration, without highest level of approval. Those check guards for us were ways that we were able to navigate our expenses, and I think that the combination of all that, getting involved with the community, understanding your customers, and also being able to kind of keep your expenses fixed or as relatively low as possible, and then growing. You can grow and add more products. You can grow and add more of this, but if you don't have enough customers and you've got 3 months worth of products in your vault for 3 times the amount of customers that you have, what is going to happen? You're going to end up losing your financials on the inventory. Instead, just finding what products are the most successful in your store, identifying those, teaching your staff about how to sell those products, what are the benefits of those products, why those products, and then just kind of trying to keep things relatively low expense-wise, I think was really big for us.
Listen, what I'm hearing a lot of is strategy, right? And for people to really understand that this is not a regular retail environment. It's not a Foot Locker where you have your Nike contract, your Adidas contract is coming out, and it's a cycle. There's going to be a line out the door. Everybody knows Nike. This is unique to everywhere that we are, everywhere that you go. From inventory to the size of the vault to where you pick your location. I mean, even Danielle, can you speak to MSO models are completely different, right? They're not even trying to aim at almost any of those things other than where you at.
It's funny. Actually, though, as she was talking, I felt a lot of synergy, because I feel the things that you've talked about in terms of the way that you approach entering into a community, or even the things that you're taking into consideration, are actually things that I have seen as a part of Ascend's strategy, right? So even taking into consideration the way that my role has played out, I did not name our social equity program. It didn't have a cool name until year 3. Why? Because I wanted to do the work. I wanted to build the relationships. I wanted to get to know what people needed. What am I naming? I don't even know what you need. I don't know what you want. And how are we going to collaborate and work together in a way that feels real and authentic? I'm not coming because I want something from you. I'm coming because I want to bring value to you. And that is the way that Ascend has approached the way that they build out their relationships and communities, right? That's all the way down from community to the municipality, the police departments, all of those folks who are going to be stakeholders in your community. They are very intentional. It's actually one of the things that solidified for me why I wanted to continue to work there, is when we entered into Jersey and we had the meeting with the CRC in the state, and each department that went was, first of all, so on point and had their stuff like impressing the folks who were interviewing us. And secondly, it was clear that they deeply cared, right? They weren't just on point just because they were smart. They were on point because this mattered to them. They really wanted to have great product for people. So, and knowing our founders and knowing our leadership, that is their ethos, and it trickles down. So I think depending on who the MSO is, and that's key. depending on how they are, who is at the top.
Hey, I do buy from Ascend. So. I support the women-owned brands.
That's right.
Lowell and Miss Grass and
That's
1906.
Right.
So.
That's right. Like, who is your leadership? The way a leader feels about how they enter is the way they're going to enter. So I can speak for Ascend and Ascend only that is very much in line. Yeah.
Well, listen, I love your concept around flowers. And that's why this is called Flowers and Tea, right? We too are trying to break the stigma and make sure that we introduce a more professionalized sort of narrative and messaging around the incredible work that we're all doing. So thank you for taking time to come and sit with us and share so much. I mean, because we talk to everyone who's struggling. I'm struggling. And please don't encourage anyone to come to Jersey City. That's a bad strategy. Don't come here. But yeah, I'm so glad to learn of someone who's winning, who's making it work, and who can offer value to other people of like, because I always say all the time, this is actually a great industry. I too owned a business before, and I agree. I think business acumen is something that's missing. And, you know, you have to be able to apply some of that in this space, but this is a great industry. There's a lot of potential. There's obviously a lot of revenue available. And as we continue to, I don't want to say flip consumers. I like your motto about the CBD, but encourage people to understand how to take control of their wellness and understand the benefits of cannabis. We're being able to do that. So you're doing it in a way that shows people like you can still do this business and win. Everyone ain't a loser out here.
Listen, I truly think like one of the biggest like things I learned starting up like was branding, marketing. Like everyone sells the same products. How do you differentiate yourself? And you know, who are you trying to market towards? Like in college, I got to study branding and marketing of cities. Which kind of like made me realize like how you can build the infrastructure to then attract like the people. And you might have to have a little momentum and you might have to like wait a little bit, but you know, just I guess don't fold too quickly. Like don't, just because a competitor opens doesn't mean now you need to start reducing all of your price points. Like you need to understand what your business needed to stay alive to begin with, and can you afford to do that? And then if you can't afford to do that, then how can you provide service in a way that elevates it beyond what that other store is offering?
That's right.
You know, how to differentiate yourself is going to be number one in this market, I truly think. And in the New Jersey market, last thing I'm going to say is I think about how people think. Like in my area, chains don't work. I think about like Walmart, Target. There are no other, you know, big box stores like that. You know, there's Starbucks and there's Dunkin'. You know, but there are the local little tea shops. There are the local coffee stores. There are the mom and pop restaurants, you know? And in my area, I knew that those are the things that survive. The chains, they come, they go. People buy into people.
Yes.
Bars. Thank you. Well, I hope you took a lot away from this episode. Nothing but gems. Everybody in cannabis is not losing. Some of us are winning. Some of us are applying business acumen and strategy to make sure that they come out on the other side. All right? So this is Flowers and Tea. We'll see you next time.